What's good, y'all? It's HB Punch and Profit. We're going to break down the fight between Canelo Alvarez versus Terrence Bud Crawford. And I'm going to give my prediction and I'm going to put it out there. I got Terrence Crawford winning this fight. Now, I am concerned about my prediction based off of that face-off last night. And I'll dive into that for a second. But I don't want to get sidetracked here. Last night was very concerning for Terrence Crawford. That's not the Terrence Crawford I recognize. But I'm picking Terrence Crawford. Now, I'm not pulling this out of my ass. Look, I compete in the sport of boxing. I train fighters in boxing. I've studied these fighters to no end, Canelo and Terrence Crawford. And I'm going to give you the reasons, the sufficient reasons why I'm picking him based off of his skill set. Okay, but let's go back to that face-off because it was concerning. It's not that face-offs win fights, you guys. It's that when I see a face-off, especially when you get to these big fights with these big name fighters, I want to see consistency in their behavior. When I see inconsistency, okay, that is a little bit alarming. Okay, that is their fear, is maybe reality kicking in for Terrence Crawford? Is he not confident and is he questioning himself, right? That's why I'm concerned about last night. I'm used to Terrence Crawford being at a face-off or at a weigh-in. I'm used to seeing a very confident fighter. I'm used to seeing somebody who their chest is sticking out, their chin is held high, and they're walking with a swag. Okay, and they're barking a little bit. Terrence Crawford likes to talk a little bit of shit. Okay, he's not an ignorant, arrogant asshole, but he does like to bark a little bit. And that's what I'm used to seeing when he gets to the weigh-in and the face-off. He likes to stand in front of his opponent when they're posing for the pictures. He'll shove his opponent. I didn't see that. I didn't see that same Terrence Crawford that I'm used to seeing at most of his weigh-ins. Okay, I didn't see that. That is a little bit concerning for me. So it's not that, okay, I wanted to see him win the face-off. It's more so, are you being consistent? Are you keeping the same energy that you've had throughout all of your other face-offs? And it didn't look like that. He looked a little intimidated. He looked a little submissive. I think about this. Think about the Earl Spence fight where Terrence Crawford, he's walking onto the stage. He's singing the music, right? He's walking with that Conor McGregor strut, right? You didn't see that. You didn't see that. And he was so confident at that weigh-in and that face-off that it was almost like, I know I'm going to shock the world. Y'all are in for a rude awakening, okay? And I didn't see that at the face-off. So that is a bit concerning. But I'm going to stick with my prediction. I'm going to roll with Bud, okay? And I'll give my reasons why. And it's not so much because I think little of Canelo Alvarez. It's more so because how highly I think of Terrence Crawford. First of all, I think he has a very unique ability, and this is what has made him a great fighter within the sport. And maybe he is biting off a little bit more he can chew, going up 2 weight classes, right? He has a unique ability to counter a counter, not just with 1 punch or 2 punches, but with punches and bunches. This is especially in the era of Mayweather and the influence he had on this next crop of fighters, it's hard to find guys who have this, who really worked on this skill set and ability to counter counters with punches and bunches. And that's one of the reasons I was able to predict why Boots Ennis is next up and why he's going to be a great fighter, because he has that same ability to counter counters with punches and bunches, willing to stand in the pocket in exchange and even take a punch to give 3 or 4 more, okay? That's a very unique ability. Even ability I don't really think Canelo has. Canelo's an excellent counterpuncher, but he's more of a 1-punch counterpuncher, okay? He's going to look to catch you with, a counter body shot, those hooks to the body, the right hook, the left hook. He's going to break you down to the body, let that take accumulation over the fight, and then he's going to set up a big shot to the head, right? And maybe he gets you out of there, or maybe he just overwhelms you and he wins on the scorecards. And this is what makes this fight so intriguing to me stylistically. I want to see how deep Canelo, he may not need to pull that out of his bag, right? Or he may not even need to accomplish going in there countering Crawford's counters. Everybody who's predicting an easy win for Canelo, it could just be as simple as Canelo's just too big, he's too powerful. He can take Crawford's shots, don't bother him. He cuts off the ring, wears Crawford down, and just, you know, overwhelms him. That may be all Canelo needs. Now, I don't think it is, because even Canelo is kind of indicating he's slimming down for this fight, and he's probably going to take more of an approach that he did with Danny Jacobs, which it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know what Canelo's going to do in this fight. I tend to think he's going to put pressure and cut off the ring, because I think that's just innately what he's probably going to do, what he's done through most of his fights against fleet-footed fighters, right? But I don't put it past him that maybe he'll try the box a little on the back foot, that maybe he'll try to make this fight look like somewhat the Danny Jacobs fight, okay? Which is a smart move. I think is a smart move. I think he should box a little bit. But I think we're all curious to see, can Terrence Crawford get Canelo's respect, okay? And can he get Canelo's respect to where he's not just walking him down all fight and throwing body shots and breaking him down? But where I'm very interested in seeing this fight is the counter games that are going to be played, okay? How does Canelo counter Crawford's counters? Does he even come back, or is it just he's just going to go pot shot to the body all night and wait for Crawford to break down? But if that doesn't work for Canelo, he's going to have to be forced to play a high IQ game of chess with Crawford. And if it gets to that, if it gets to the point in this fight to where it's a chess match, I'm not picking against Crawford, because I haven't seen enough from Canelo in terms of countering counters and playing that game of making constant adjustments. I haven't seen that from Canelo. Canelo is predominantly getting his victories from cutting off the ring against fleet-footed fighters, putting pressure, pot-shotting to the body, breaking his opponent down, letting that take an accumulation over the fight, and then putting more pressure and overwhelming his opponent, whether it be by getting a TKO or a knockout or winning on the scorecards. But if this turns into a game of chess, I don't think Canelo's going to win that bout. Could be wrong. Could be underestimating him. But I just think that's a unique ability of Terrence Crawford. And I think people are also underestimating his power. And people are also underestimating how physically strong he is. Okay? He has a wrestling background. You're talking to somebody who's competed in wrestling. I'm not saying, oh, well, Terrence Crawford's going to win because he wrestled before. That's obviously not what I'm saying. But it's a very beneficial foundation for boxers. My trainer was a wrestler as well. And he was not a big guy. Very wiry, very skinny, but very strong in the clinch, very strong with his legs and his core, and he could manhandle heavyweights, and he was only a middleweight. He was only a middleweight, very skinny guy, but it was his boxing background, and he told me this. He says wrestling is a phenomenal background, and because he asked me if I wrestled, and he said that's a great foundation to have for boxing, because it really teaches you how to have a solid base, and it teaches you positioning for boxing. And that's why Bud is so strong in the clinch, and that's why he's so hard to you can't really just manhandle him in the ring, because he has that wrestling foundation. He understands positioning, he understands leverage, he has a solid base. And I think that could play a factor as well, because one of the ways to negate Canelo is to smother him, similar to what you saw little old Mayweather do. Smother Canelo's work. Every time he comes in with the attack, come in, clinch, hold him tight, right? Muscle him around, get him a little bit tired, lean on those arms, and then work him in the clinch. Something Andre Ward was very good at doing and wearing fighters down with. He'd get you in the clinch, he'd hit you on the hip, sneak those hip shots on you, nudge you around. And Most people who fought him had no idea they were getting worn down for the eight from rounds 8 to 12. They have no idea what he was doing. And I think that could be an advantage for Bud in this fight as well. The clinch, negating Canelo's attacks by smothering his work. That's one way. Moving backwards isn't always the best defense. Sometimes the best defense is coming forward, smothering, and tying your opponent up when he wants to throw a punch or combinations. Something you should watch for. But it would also be beneficial for Canelo to smother some of Terence Crawford's work, because if you go watch that Madrimov fight with Terence Crawford, okay, Madrimov actually did a phenomenal job of smothering some of Crawford's counter punches. So it's going to be interesting to see. I hope it turns into a high IQ matchup where we're seeing. That's going to be fun for me. I know it's going to be boring for others. It's going to be fun for me to see the tactical aspect if it turns into that. But I think Bud is doing this for legacy. I don't understand anybody who's saying that Bud is doing this purely for money. This is clearly a principled guy. He's a family man. He spends lots of time with his kids. He's been with the same team from Omaha, Nebraska, all the way up into this point. He could have switched to other states to go train, and he could have abandoned his state, his hometown. He didn't. This is a principled guy. He's taking significantly less money in this fight than Canelo. He's going up weight 2 classes. He's not making any sort of demands, which he could have. He could have barked for more demands and probably could have gotten at least 1 or 2. Not all his demands, but he probably could have got 1 or 2. Floyd Mayweather weight drained Canelo Alvarez. Terence Crawford's not doing that. He's going up. He's saying, okay, I'll take you on. I'll go up in weight. You can come in as much as you want to come in for the fight. Okay? So this is clearly a guy who's trying to accomplish something very impressive. And he's not just going in there for the bag. The bag is important. I'm not saying he's not doing it for money. He is doing it for money. But he's also doing it for legacy. And I disagree with a lot of people. I think Terence Crawford can hurt Canelo. Do not be shocked if he hurts Canelo. And regardless if you think that Canelo has this iron chin to where he can't be hurt, I would disagree with that. But even if he did, even if I grant you that, have you guys heard of body shots? Because I don't care how many abs you have. I don't care how many ab master sit-ups and whatever you're doing, or what Manny Pacquiao sit-up system you're doing. You get hit to the kidney, you get hit to the liver, you get hit to the solar plex with a perfect shot, with a nicely placed shot, you're going down, or you're going to be hurting, okay? You're going to be hurting. And I don't think Canelo's really been tested to the body by anybody. And I think Terence Crawford's a sniper when it comes to body shots. So do not be shocked if Terence Crawford sets up a beautiful punch to the body to hurt Canelo. I'm going to have Crawford winning this fight anywhere from rounds 8 to 12 by TKO. I would not be shocked if Canelo gets reckless in the first 4 rounds. He gets hurt by Bud with a counter. Okay, I know this is crazy, but I've had some pretty other crazy predictions that people couldn't even imagine, like Usyk going undisputed and beating the guys I said he was going to beat, including Anthony Joshua and Fury. I know it sounds crazy, but I made the prediction that Terence Crawford was going to dog walk Earl Spence and knock him out, when a lot of people couldn't even envision that. So I'm making another crazy prediction. I haven't been wrong about too many boxing predictions, probably about like 3 or 5 fights out of like 50, roughly around 50 predictions. So look, I could be wrong. He could be biting off a little bit more he can chew. There's definitely some concerns for Bud in this fight. And here are the advantages for Canelo. Or let's start with the concerns for Terence Bud Crawford. Terence Crawford, he's going to be coming into this fight. I'm not crazy about him packing on too much muscle. It's not so much that I'm worried about the weight of Canelo overwhelming Crawford. It's more so about him packing on extra weight. You're talking to somebody who used to be a Division I football player for the University of Central Florida. I packed on like 20 pounds of muscle in like 2 years. And I actually learned it was not beneficial. I got slower. I wasn't as quick twitched. and my cardio actually was compromised because I had to carry more muscle and I needed more oxygen to supply that muscle. So I actually learned that me being at my natural weight and more slimmer was more advantageous than me packing on more muscle. So that's what I'm a little bit concerned of for Terrence Crawford. Is he putting on a lot of weight? Will he be acclimated to that? Will it compromise his speed? And if it compromises his speed, can he carry the same power, right? Because speed actually gives you a lot of power, okay, when it comes to your punches. And I'd rather have speed than just pure power. That's me, because I can knock you out. The best knockout punches are the ones you don't see coming. And if you're very fast and quick and you got good timing, that compensates for power. Okay. So does he get slower? Does that take away from his power? Does he Does his cardio get compromised in the later rounds? Does he get fatigued? Because he did look like he got a bit fatigued in that Majimov fight in the later rounds. Okay. So that's a concern. Terrence Crawford's also, he's up there. He's up there in age. Does he get old overnight? He's been out of the ring for a while. There's probably going to be some ring rust. That's a massive concern. He's going up 2 weight classes. So, yes, there's some genuine concerns. But this is how highly I think of Terrence Crawford. I think he is the Jordan of boxing. I think he's competitive. I think he's a winner. I think a lot of people are underestimating his skill set and his resume. And that's another thing. A lot of you think Terrence Crawford has this garbage resume. It is not garbage. Just because you don't know the names of some of these fighters does not mean they weren't good fighters. He's faced a lot of Eastern Bloc fighters who are very, very skilled technical guys who are very tough. Okay. And I'm not going to get into that, but I think very highly of Eastern Bloc fighters. You saw with Mean Machine, you saw with Victor Postol, you saw with Majimov. These guys are very tough fights, okay? And I mean, look at Lomachenko, look at Usyk, Eastern Bloc fighters. Look with this guy that just beat Tim Tszyu, Murtazayev. I think he's Russian. Look what he did. Nobody knew this guy's name. A lot of these Eastern, or check out Boachuk tonight, Ukrainian fighter. He's a phenomenal fighter himself. A lot of people dismiss these Eastern Bloc fighters because they never heard their names and they don't have these big followings. But these guys are very technical. They're very tough. And they come from a Soviet style of boxing. You saw with Chudazian go two fights with Boots, 12 rounds. And a lot of people wrote off Boots after going 12 rounds with Chudazian. Oh, he's overrated. He's this. And then Boots goes in and then he dog walks Stanionis. But I was trying to tell people like, hey, Chudazian, Eastern Bloc fighter, Ukrainian, very tough guy to beat. Not an easy fight. Very technical, very skilled. And there's nothing to be ashamed of, having a tough fight with a Eastern Bloc fighter. So I think a lot of people underestimate Bud's resume. The casual boxing fans, they look at the Sean Porters when he was fighting, or the Danny Garcias and the Mikey Garcias, and they think highly of these guys. And I'm not saying they weren't good fighters, but they were a little overrated. They had big followings, like Danny Garcia he's Puerto Rican. He's going to naturally have a big following, and he's from New York, I believe. Mikey Garcia has a Mexican background. Of course, boxing is Mexico. Okay, Mexico is boxing. Of course, he's going to have a big following. And, Sean Porter has a big following. He had a big following within the black community. So I'm not saying those guys weren't good fighters, but in terms of pure skill, I think a little bit overrated. Okay. So I think a lot of people underestimate Bud's resume. So don't sleep on these Eastern Bloc fighters and the challenges they present. Majimov, Terrence Crawford, a lot of people say, oh, look, he couldn't even, get a decisive win against Majimov. Majimov is a tough fighter. He was undefeated before he faced Terrence Crawford. Very, very vast amateur background, just like Lomachenko had. And Majimov is very awkward. He's a switch hitter, very herky-jerky. These guys like that are very challenging. The ones who have weird timing like that and weird rhythm, those are some of the toughest fights you're going to face. And then on top of that, you're not very motivated to face guys like that because they don't have big names and you're not going to get a lot of credit for beating them. So I think Bud's resume is very underrated, and the type of opponents he's faced is being dismissed. But there's some genuine concerns. The face-off had me concerned, and then the things I just mentioned. But, I'm going to stick with my pick. I think he's going to get the job done. I think that I don't think he's going to run all night. I don't think he's going to be on I think he's going to take chances. It could change, right? If he figures out like, man, I'm way over my head. This dude got some crazy power and he's hurting him to the body. Yes, that could change. And maybe we see Crawford on his skates all night. But I think Crawford, his instincts, if you see him, when he gets hit, he likes to retaliate and he doubles down. And this could also be the demise of him in this fight. If he gets a little careless and he stands in that pocket too long, does Canelo come back with something to put him out? I think he'll be all right, and I actually think that it's going to be more dangerous for Canelo to sit in that pocket with him than it is for Crawford to, because I don't think Canelo's going to be able to come back with multiple counters right after Crawford. So what I want to see from Crawford, his keys to victory, I think he's going to have to get on his skates initially, get a feel for what's going on. You don't want to take Canelo's full power within the first 4 to 6 rounds, break him down, jab him upstairs, jab him down to the body, stay on the back foot. Every time Canelo gets desperate to get to the inside, smother his work, step inside. It's not always about stepping back. Sometimes it's about stepping forward. Step forward, smother Canelo's work. Wear him down in the clinch, use your wrestling base to do that. Then after that, I think you will start to see Canelo slow down. And I think Terence Crawford will be more of a ring general. He'll start to take over the later rounds, start to break Canelo down. He'll start to land some good body shots. Will it be enough to put Canelo out? I think enough to get a TKO. All right, the crazy prediction. I think it'll be enough to get a TKO. I think he will hurt Canelo, and don't be shocked if he can hurt him to the head. Do not be shocked. Do not be shocked if he backs down Canelo in this fight. And not by choice, right? Not because Canelo wants to, but because Terence Crawford is forcing him. Do not be shocked. And I think he hurts Canelo at some point, even if he doesn't get a TKO or knockout. Or knockdown. I think he does hurt Canelo, and it becomes visibly obvious. And I think it'll be enough to convince the judges to give him a victory on the scorecard. But I'll go out on a limb, and I think he's going to get a TKO. In terms of Canelo, I think it can be beneficial for him to box a little bit in this matchup. But look, you're the bigger guy naturally. Cut off the ring, put pressure, bring the fight to Terence Crawford. If he's just a little old welterweight, walk him down, take his shots, beat him down to the body like you do. Just treat it like every other fight you've had with Billy Joe Saunders, with Caleb Plant, with Jamal Charlo, or Jamel. I don't know which twin it was he faced. I really don't care about those twins. But, treat it like all those other fights. Walk him down, cut off the ring, pot shot him to the body, and knock him out. Or overwhelm him to where you get the decision on the scorecards. Or Amir Khan. You saw what he did to Amir Khan. Just do that. It's that simple for Canelo if it's just little old Bud. But I think Bud's going to get a little bit more respect. I think Canelo is going to have to box a little bit. But overall, I think his keys to victory is probably one way, and that's what he's been doing. It's cut off the ring, pot shot to the body, break your opponent down, hope it wears them out by the later rounds, and take over the fight. That simple. Canelo Alvarez is I don't think he's as sophisticated as most of you think. I do give him credit. I do like his defense, his head movement. I do know that he can box when he wants to, but I just don't think he has as many branches in his military compared to Terence Crawford. And I always say it like this. Would you rather choose a fighter who has multiple, or would you rather choose a military that has multiple branches that are sufficient? Or would you rather have a military with 1 to 2 branches? Now, I think Canelo has 3 branches, right? I think he has a good Air Force. I think he has a good Army. And I think he has good Marines. But Terrence Crawford, he's got a Space Force, he's got a Coast Guard, he's got an Army, he's got a National Guard, he's got a Navy, he's got an Air Force, he's got all the branches. And when you have all those branches, you can attack your opponent in so many ways, or you can get very creative to where how you make adjustments. Okay, you take away my Army, I'm going to implement my Navy. You take away my Navy, I still got my Air Force. I got my Space Force. I may use 2 of those branches here to attack your Army, but I'm going to use 3 of these branches over here to attack your Marines, right? I think Canelo is not one-dimensional. I don't think he's just one-dimensional, but I think he has a couple military branches, maybe 3. I don't think it's going to be enough to get the job done. That's just me. But if he has that powerful Army, like I said, the power and the ability to cut off the ring and put pressure, like I said, he has a massive Army, maybe that's good enough. I could be wrong. That could be where I'm wrong in my prediction. Maybe that is enough to beat Terrence Crawford. Maybe the weight and just the juggernaut of his armed forces will be enough to take out Terrence Crawford. I don't think it will be. But you know, definitely some concerns at the face-off, but I'm going to stick with my prediction. I got Terrence Crawford by TKO anywhere from rounds 8 to 12. I think he hurts Canelo in this fight, and it is very visible even if he doesn't get that TKO. So this is HB, Punch and Profit. Comment down below, like the video, follow if you're new. Peace.